Sarah Mitchell sat cross-legged on the grass outside her small cottage, weaving a basket from dried reeds. To any observer, she appeared to be just another human, living a simple life in what galactic databases classified as a primitive settlement. Her tools were basic, her home was made of mud bricks and thatch, and her daily activities seemed unchanged from those of her ancestors thousands of years ago. But appearances, as the galaxy was learning, meant very little when it came to humanity. "The Confederation fleet is approaching," she said quietly, not looking up from her weaving. Around her, other villagers continued their work. An old man sharpened a flint knife. A woman tended a cooking fire. Children played with wooden toys. None of them reacted to Sarah's words. But the quantum field surrounding their settlement began to shift in subtle ways. "How many ships?" asked Marcus, the old man with the knife. His blade caught the sunlight as he worked, but the light seemed to bend around it in impossible ways. 12 dreadnoughts, 47 cruisers, over 200 support vessels," Sarah replied, her fingers never pausing in their weaving. "Admiral Kresh is commanding. He's convinced that the Empire's warning about us was propaganda designed to keep other powers away from Earth." Marcus tested the edge of his blade against his thumb. A drop of blood welled up, but instead of falling, it hovered in the air and began to glow with soft blue light. "The Confederation always was more aggressive than the Empire. Their military doctrine assumes that any species can be conquered with sufficient force." "Should we educate them?" asked Elena, one of the women by the fire. She was grinding grain with a stone mortar and pestle, but each movement of the pestle created ripples in space-time that extended far beyond Earth's atmosphere. Sarah considered the question while continuing to weave. Her basket was taking shape, but to eyes that could see beyond the visible spectrum, she was actually constructing a complex mathematical framework that could alter the fundamental constants of physics in a localized area. "The Confederation has invaded 17 star systems in the past decade," she said finally. "Their approach to first contact involves either immediate subjugation or total destruction. They won't be interested in peaceful communication." "Then we respond appropriately," Marcus said, setting down his knife. The blade was now perfectly sharp, but more importantly, it had been restructured at the molecular level to exist in a quantum superposition that made it effectively indestructible. Above Earth's atmosphere, Admiral Kresh stood on the bridge of his flagship Dominator, studying the tactical display. The Confederation fleet had been in position for 6 hours, running detailed scans of the planet below. Unlike the Empire's cautious approach, Kresh intended to make immediate contact through a show of overwhelming force. "Status report," he demanded. "All ships in attack formation, Admiral," his tactical officer reported. "Weapons charged, shields at maximum. Ground assault teams are ready for deployment." "What about the energy readings?" the Empire reported. "We're detecting some anomalous signatures from the primitive settlements, but nothing that indicates advanced weaponry. The Empire may have exaggerated the threat to discourage competition." Kresh nodded confidently. In his 40 years of military service, he had conquered dozens of worlds for the Confederation. The key was always to strike hard and fast, to demonstrate such overwhelming superiority that resistance became impossible. Primitive species like humans simply couldn't comprehend the power of modern military technology. "Open a channel to the planet," he ordered. "All frequencies." The communication system activated, broadcasting Kresh's message across Earth's entire electromagnetic spectrum. In thousands of locations around the planet, humans paused in their activities as his words reached them. "Attention, inhabitants of Earth. I am Admiral Kresh of the Confederation Navy. Your planet is now under Confederation control. You will surrender immediately and prepare for processing. Any resistance will be met with planetary bombardment. You have 1 hour to respond." In her village, Sarah sighed softly and set aside her basket. "Well, that's unfortunate." "Very," agreed Marcus. Some beings never learn to ask before taking. Around the galaxy, the other major powers watched the confrontation unfold. The Empire had shared their warnings about humanity with their allies, but the Confederation had dismissed them as strategic deception. Now, observation posts throughout local space monitored what they expected to be either humanity's surrender or destruction. Emperor Valthon watched from his throne room, feeling sick to his stomach. He had hoped that other powers would heed the Empire's warnings and approach humanity with respect. But Kresh had always been known for his aggression and disregard for diplomatic protocols. Computer, time until the Confederation ultimatum expires. 47 minutes, Your Majesty. Valthon considered intervening, but his fleet was too far away to reach Earth in time. Besides, any military action near human space might be interpreted as an attack by humanity themselves. All he could do was watch and hope that the Confederation fleet would have enough sense to retreat when they realized what they were facing. Back on Earth, Sarah stood and brushed grass from her simple dress. Around her, the other villagers were also preparing for what was to come, but their preparations looked nothing like military mobilization. If anything, they seemed to be settling in for an evening of quiet contemplation. "Should we give them a demonstration first?" Elena asked, banking her cooking fire with careful precision. "They've been warned," Marcus replied. "The Empire told them we're not what we appear to be. If they choose to ignore that warning and threaten our people, they accept the consequences." Sarah nodded sadly. "Begin the response." Across Earth, in thousands of villages and settlements that galactic censors classified as primitive, humans began their work. To external observation, nothing changed. People continued their simple daily activities, using basic tools and living in modest dwellings. But beneath the visible surface, something fundamental began to shift. The fabric of space-time around Earth began to flex. Reality itself started responding to human will, bending and reshaping according to their intentions. The laws of physics, which had seemed absolute and unchangeable, became fluid and negotiable. Admiral Kresh noticed the first signs when his ship's instruments began giving impossible readings. "Admiral, we're detecting massive gravitational fluctuations around the planet," his science officer reported. "The readings don't make sense. It's like space itself is being manipulated." "That's impossible. Gravitational manipulation requires technology we've only theorized about." "Sir, the fluctuations are increasing. And they're not coming from any technological sources we can detect. The energy patterns are biological." Kresh felt the first flutter of uncertainty. "Biological? You mean the humans themselves are causing these effects?" Before the science officer could answer, space around the Confederation fleet began to change visibly. Stars shifted position, light bent into impossible patterns, and the familiar constants of physics became unreliable suggestions. "Admiral, our weapon systems are no longer responding to standard commands," the tactical officer reported with growing panic. "The targeting computers can't lock onto the planet because space keeps changing." "What do you mean, changing?" "The distance to Earth keeps fluctuating, sir. One moment we're in orbit, the next we're thousands of kilometers away. Then we're somehow closer than before. Our instruments can't maintain a consistent reading." On Earth's surface, Sarah and her fellow villagers worked with quiet concentration. Each movement they made, each tool they used, each word they spoke was simultaneously a simple human action and a fundamental manipulation of reality. They were living proof that the distinction between primitive and advanced was meaningless when applied to beings who had transcended the normal limitations of physical existence. "They're trying to lock weapons onto population centers," reported Marcus, who was now carving symbols into a piece of wood with his quantum blade. "Should we redirect their targeting?" "Make their weapons target empty space," Sarah suggested. Let them fire at nothing until they understand. The effect was immediate. Aboard the Confederation fleet, weapons officers watched in horror as their most powerful armaments locked onto points in empty space and fired automatically. Planet-destroying energy beams lanced out into the void, striking nothing and accomplishing nothing. "Admiral, we've lost control of our weapons," the tactical officer screamed. "They're firing on their own. Emergency shutdown! All weapons offline, now!" But the weapons continued firing. Not at Earth, but at carefully selected empty regions of space where they could do no harm. The most powerful military force the Confederation had ever assembled was reduced to helplessly shooting at nothing while the planet they intended to conquer remained completely untouched. "Sir, incoming communication from the surface," the communications officer reported. "Put it through." Sarah's image appeared on the main screen. She was sitting peacefully in her village, still working on her basket as if nothing unusual was happening. Behind her, other humans continued their daily activities while the space battle raged overhead. "Admiral Kresh," she said pleasantly, "you seem to be having some difficulties with your equipment." "What have you done to my ships?" Kresh demanded. "Nothing harmful," Sarah replied. "We've simply adjusted local physics to prevent you from hurting anyone. Your weapons will continue firing at empty space until you decide to leave our system." "This is impossible! You're using stone tools. You have no technology." Sarah held up her half-finished basket. "This is technology, Admiral, just not the kind you recognize. Every human action simultaneously exists at multiple levels of reality. When I weave this basket, I'm also weaving the fabric of space-time itself." She gestured to Marcus, who was still carving his piece of wood. "When my friend shapes wood with his knife, he's also reshaping the fundamental forces that govern your ship's operation." "You're primitives!" Kresh shouted. "This is some kind of trick." "We're whatever we choose to be," Sarah corrected gently. "Right now, we choose to be people living simple lives who don't want to be conquered by aggressive aliens, so we're making that impossible." Around the Confederation fleet, space continued to behave in ways that violated every known law of physics. Ships found themselves moving in directions their engines weren't pointing. Gravity seemed to flow upward instead of downward. Light traveled in curves instead of straight lines. "Admiral," the science officer said in a shaking voice, "long-range sensors are detecting similar effects around every major star system in this region. Whatever the humans are doing, they're doing it across thousands of light-years of space simultaneously." Kresh felt his worldview collapsing. The Confederation's power was based on superior technology and military might. But humans were operating on principles that made technology irrelevant and military might meaningless. "What do you want?" he asked Sarah. "For you to leave our space and never come back with hostile intent," she replied simply. "We're willing to establish peaceful relations with the Confederation, but only if you approach us as equals rather than as primitives to be conquered." "Equals? You're not even spacefaring," Sarah smiled. "Admiral, look around you. Your most advanced fleet can't even fire its weapons in the right direction. Your ships are lost in space that we're reshaping at will. Your technology is useless because we're changing the laws that make it work." She leaned forward slightly. "In what way exactly are we not your equals?" The question hung in the air while Kresh struggled to find an answer. His fleet was completely helpless. His weapons were useless. His technology was being countered by humans using stone tools and wooden implements. Everything he thought he knew about military superiority had been proven wrong. "If I order my fleet to retreat, will you restore normal space?" "Immediately," Sarah promised. "And we'll consider this an unfortunate misunderstanding rather than an act of war." "But Admiral, please make sure your government understands what happened here. We're not primitives who got lucky. We're not hiding advanced technology. We are exactly what we appear to be, humans living simple lives who happen to exist simultaneously at every level of reality." "That's impossible," Kresh said weakly. Yet here we are, Sarah replied. The galaxy is about to learn that impossible things happen regularly when humans are involved. You can be part of that learning process, or you can continue to insist that reality conforms to your expectations. She picked up her basket and continued weaving. The choice is yours, Admiral. Kresh looked around his bridge at the terrified faces of his crew. His instruments showed impossible readings. His weapons fired at nothing. His ships moved through space that followed rules no one had ever encountered before. All ships, he announced finally, withdraw to minimum safe distance. Set course for Confederation space. The moment his fleet began to retreat, space around them snapped back to normal. The stars returned to their proper positions, physics resumed its familiar behavior, and the Confederation ships found themselves once again operating in a universe that made sense. Sarah watched them go, then returned her attention to her basket. Around her, the village continued its peaceful existence, as if nothing had happened. But across the galaxy, the implications of what observers had witnessed began to spread. Humanity had casually defeated the most powerful military force in Confederation space without using any recognizable technology. They had manipulated reality itself as easily as breathing. The age of galactic conquest was over. The age of humanity had truly begun. And somewhere on Earth, in thousands of villages around the planet, humans continued their simple lives, weaving baskets and sharpening knives and tending fires, secure in the knowledge that they were exactly what they had always been, simultaneously primitive and godlike, limited only by their own choices about what to be in any given moment.